What's going on, Hobby Lobby? It's your boy Javier with Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. I'm back with David C Smalley. Yeah. What's going on, David?
What's up, man? Let's
It's all
do it.
good. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about guns this time. We finna get into it. So you think I'm pretty sure you probably think I'm more like, yo, leave my Second Amendment completely alone. I don't want no gun legislation, no gun right, I don't no gun restrictions. What's your position on guns at the moment?
Well, that's almost word for word what you just said in the previous section. You said, I don't think that the Democrats are going to leave my Second Amendment alone. Um, it surprises me because I know you're a fellow atheist that you would be so in love with an ancient document that has not been modernized, that had no way of knowing what was going to come in the future for us to still be going by that Second Amendment. That the Constitution is important, but it is a living, breathing document. It should be updated with our times, unlike the Bible can be. So my position is, you know what? The long form of my position, I wrote an article called "Why Gun Nuts Lie." It's on Pathos. It's one of the most popular pieces I ever wrote. It's got like 5,000 comments, and most people calling me a cuck libtard or something like that. But uh, I was born and raised in Texas. I am a gun owner. I have my concealed carry permit out of Texas. Um, I know that AR doesn't mean assault rifle. It means Armalite from the company that created ARs.
I had to
I
tell
scored.
you, I had to tell you one time that assault weapon was not the real name.
Well, it depends on what we were talking about. I said assault rifle, and maybe I said assault weapon. But man, during a live 3-hour show, I mean, I can't be held accountable for everything I say.
Yeah.
But I did. I'm just kidding. I did score almost perfectly on my concealed carry permit, on my shooting test, on my written test. I've done tons of ride outs with cops and seen what they had to go through. Like, I'm not some liberal dude that just wants everybody to give up their guns, right? That's not my position. But I think we need to treat guns like cars. I think you need to have, and I line this out in the article. I think that there needs to be mandatory licensing for all weapons. That's not infringing on your rights to get it. It's perhaps abridging your rights a little bit. It does make it a little more difficult, but we should know who you are. We should know what you have. There should be mandatory license renewals, mandatory training. The vast majority of gun deaths are either accidents or someone in your own home being shot. Either
That's false. That's
a gun
false.
just going.
That's false, David.
You asked me my position. Now you're telling me I'm
Oh,
lying to you.
okay. Okay, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish.
I meant what I meant. I see what you're saying now. What I meant was gun shootings in your own house most of the time are accidents. I mean that because it's not like there's no record of like this crazy amount of people fending off bad guys, and that doesn't happen. It's very rare that something like that happens.
Also false.
Of course, no, that's not false. But I'm gonna fucking finish this. The vast majority, basically, you having a gun in your house drastically reduces your own chances of being killed by that gun. Period. You're at higher risk of dying by gunfire, not only because of accidents and untrained and not having a license, but family members, friends coming over, kids coming over, people not storing them properly. It's like a Class B misdemeanor if you allow a minor to have access to that gun, even if it's not loaded. But it's just a misdemeanor. You get a ticket. Maybe you spend a weekend in jail. It's not that big of a deal, but it literally ends up in thousands of deaths per year. I'm in favor of mandatory insurance, operating laws, age limits, requiring safety inspections, just like treat it like a car. Just if you have something that can kill people, you need to be licensed. We need to know who you are. And it needs to be regulated, and universal background checks. And I'm not crazy. I'm not some crazy leftist saying this stuff. 67% of Americans believe that gun laws should be more strict. 67%. We live in a democratic republic. We should be able to go where the majority leads. 67% thinks that gun laws should be more strict. 47%. Now, this is where it gets controversial, and we could get to this. 67% believe that assault rifles should not be legal at all on any level. But to me, that's a deeper thing. The fact that 83% of NRA members support a universal background check and some of those mandatory things I was talking about, I think that's key. I think that clearly you have lobbyists and special interests not doing what we the people, think is right. Joe Biden is not in favor of taking all your guns and throwing away the Second Amendment. Okay, there's a clip of him saying, "Hell yeah, we'll take your guns," but he was talking about specifically assault rifles in a specific situation. He's not going to come take every rifle, every 9mm, everything you concealed and licensed to carry. He's not concerned with that. But the right would have you believe that you have no way of protecting your family. The police are going to go away, and you're going to be vulnerable and attacked by Antifa if Joe Biden is president. And my favorite way to word that is just horseshit, man.
That's a lot to address. You gave me the long form.
False. That's false.
Wrong.
Wrong.
All right. So, whew. All right. So many things there. Okay. For one, you said that if you have a gun in the house, it drastically increases your chances of shooting yourself or harming yourself or somebody in the home harming themselves. That's like saying if you have a pool in your backyard, it drastically increases your chances of drowning. Of course it does.
It does. Yep.
So it's a given. The second thing is you said that.
Hold on, don't just brush past that. That's important.
Yeah, but
you are more likely to die from that weapon than you are to successfully protect yourself from a bad guy. You acknowledge that, right?
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that because you made the claim that most people there's not a lot of self-defense with firearms, and that's false.
Percentage-wise, Javier.
Do you know how many people? Do you know the potential amount of people a year that uses their gun in self-defense? It's up to 2.5 million people who uses a gun in self-defense.
Self-defense. Do we know how many of those required a gun?
No, we don't. But
right.
then
some things could have just been a fight. Some things could have been avoided. Sometimes you could just drive off, but you jump out of your car and shoot somebody in a road rage incident. That's considered using your gun in self-defense. Come on, man. Not feeling it.
Right now, you basically arguing. You basically using an argument from ignorance, like, oh, we don't know what each self-defense is labeled under.
Not the argument.
So
don't try that with me, man. I'm a master at this shit. Don't come on my field playing that. No, sir. It's the other way around because you brought that evidence up and you can't back it up because you don't know the details of the evidence. I'm asking you a question about. That's not an argument from ignorance, Javier, because I asked you if you know how many of those where a gun was required, and you said no. All right, then your evidence isn't good enough for this conversation. We don't know how many of those they had to have a gun, and you're saying that's an argument of ignorance on my point.
No, because your argument is maybe they could have used something else to self-defense. That's not an argument because they chose to use a gun.
That's not my argument. My argument is we don't know that the gun was required. Therefore, simply because they used it doesn't mean it was necessary. And you can't prove with your evidence that the gun was necessary. So don't bring that shit to the table.
Why is it relevant whether it was necessary or not? I'm just giving you the statistical fact that guns are used in self-defense.
Let me give you an example. If I told you I use my gun twice a week, it's constant. I've always got it with me. You're like, damn. Well, that's effective. I'm going to put you down in the necessary. And then behind the scenes, you go, by the way, what'd you use it for? Shit. I got locked out of my house, blew my doorknob right the fuck off, went straight in the door. My neighbor's cat out there meowing, driving me crazy, shot that motherfucker right in the head. That ain't a problem anymore. I could use my gun for all kinds of dumb shit that I don't need it for. That doesn't mean it's a productive, necessary tool.
I agree with you. What I'm telling you is the CDC says that the number of people who use their gun in self-defense based on how they consider to be self-defense was justifiably up to 2.5 million people. Now, let's say half of that, the gun wasn't required. You're still dealing with 1 million people. 1.2 million people. So it's still a large number. You said it rarely it doesn't really happen. It happens a lot. So that's the point that I was trying to make. But you also said that anything that you can use to kill somebody should be treated like a car. I could murder somebody with a hammer. Should I have to register? Should I have to do all of those hoops and bounds to buy a hammer out of Home Depot?
No. First of all, your number on percentage, I just pull up my calculator. That is 0.3% of our population. It sounds big to say 1.2 million people. 0.3% of our population, according to that CDC thing that you said that I haven't fact checked, by the way, 0.3%.
Yeah, but you also have to take that into account of how many violent crimes are committed upon people.
No.
How many people own firearms?
I wouldn't. I would take that into account as opposed to how many people are wrongfully killed or accidentally killed or are killed because they don't have enough training on the gun. Remember, my position is not to make guns illegal, and that's not Joe Biden's position. I think my position is even a little further left than Joe's, although there is one thing that Joe wants to do that I disagree with, that Bernie disagrees with as well. I don't agree with holding manufacturers responsible. I think that is really dumb. I think that is so stupid. I think it's so terrible to hold a manufacturer responsible. He tried to use that against Bernie in the debate, and I was like, that sounds like it makes... I was going to
bring that up, but go ahead.
Nah, that's dumb. That's dumb. I think that the companies are just following the laws, and it's a capitalist society. Just like these tax laws, like you're talking about Amazon paying 0%. I'm like, yeah, that's messed up, but the tax code needs to be fixed. You're blaming these companies like they're evil. Corporations have an obligation to their sharedholders to maximize profits, period. So if they can get away with paying zero tax, the loopholes are what's broken, stupid ass. Yeah. Fix that. Don't demonize the company or call Jeff Bezos Satan. But anyway, my point is that what I want is more training and more licensing to reduce the number of accidents.
And I agree that
there's no reason one dude needs to buy 7 AR-15s. What are you doing?
He might like different. He might like hunting. He might like. I mean, why put a cap on it? For example, why tell somebody how many cars they can buy? Because you said it should be treated like a car. Why should Roy George Jr. or some famous boxer have 30 cars? You know what I mean? Look what it's doing to the environment.
Because you can only use one at a time. And what I'm telling you is, when I say like cars, I don't mean exactly every little step of the way. That's a straw man of my position. And again, I detail all of this in that article called "Why Gun Nuts Lie." If you type "Why Gun Nuts Lie" into Google, it'll be the top search. I don't mean because technically you could have 6 DUIs and go buy a car, right? But you can't legally drive it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between buying a car and using a car. I'm saying if we incorporate both of those levels into gun buying, then it'll be kind of the same thing, to where you go, well, if you've had, if you've been, like, for example, do you think if someone has been convicted of a violent crime where they've beaten a spouse, do you think they should be allowed to buy a gun?
No, they shouldn't.
Well, you're a fucking liberal, because that's gun control.
We already have background checks that run background checks on people for domestic violence and stuff.
Have you heard of the boyfriend? Have you heard of the boyfriend loophole?
When you can gift off your gun to someone, or is that a different one?
Here, I'll pull it up. While I'm doing that, are you familiar with? Oh, here it goes. The boyfriend loophole refers to a gap in American gun legislation. Access to guns by physically abusive ex-boyfriend and stalkers with previous convictions.
How do they do that? Like, how do they get around it? I mean, if it tells you, you don't have to go deep into it.
The headline says, "This obscure loophole lets domestic abusers buy guns, and here's how it happens." And it takes you through exactly what they can do to make it happen. The same way with the gun show loophole. That one I don't need to look up. The gun show loophole. So, like, in California, you're allowed to have guns. Everybody acts like California is a no-gun state. You're allowed to have them, but you do register them. So
you got to go through hell to get them.
No, you don't. You ever bought a gun in California?
Nah, I've never been to California, but
Good thing I have experience talking with Christians that say shit they can't prove. California will allow you to buy guns, but you just go down to the gun store and fill out a form. They do a background check and you leave with the gun. And if it's a certain kind of gun, there's a 5-day check for the Brady bill to make sure you're not enraged and murder somebody right then. You don't have to go through hell. As a matter of fact, I can sell my own gun in California.
What is the carry?
Let me tell you something. I can sell my gun in California. You know how I do it? I take it to a registered gun shop and I say, I want to sell this. I sign a consignment document with them. They put it on display. And whenever they sell it, I get 70, 80% of that money, and they keep 20 to 30% on consignment. But they have a record of who it came from and a record of where it went.
It's like that. It's like that in Georgia. It's like that in Georgia.
Okay.
I might have been mistaken. I don't know what it takes in California to conceal carry. Is it what's the concealed carry requirements in California?
It usually depends on the county. It gets confusing because it's chopped up. Like I could get one in Los Angeles County under certain circumstances, and also depends on the sheriff of your region. So I'm in a more conservative area. It's a little easier for me out here. I know people don't think of LA as being conservative. My actual congressional representative is a Republican. So my district is red. And so it would be easier here, but there are still Democratic run counties and districts where people get concealed carry weapons. A lot of celebrities get it. A lot of bodyguards get them. There's a big industry here for private and personal security because of all the celebrities.
I stand corrected.
Yeah,
I was wrong.
It happens. No, I get it. It is harder here than it is in, say, Arizona, where you can just go to the candy store and get a Hershey's and a 9mm and just leave. It's a little different, but but I will say that the gun show loophole is scary. The gun show loophole is, I got to go to the, like you in Georgia or me here in California, we have to go to a licensed dealer, sell it, and then the next person has to buy it from that dealer. That's fine. In fact, you could even just say, I want to sell my gun, and people can contact you, say, I want to buy. You can negotiate directly with people and then say, meet me at the gun store and we'll do the license swap. Yeah. And the gun dealer will take a little percentage off the top for doing the thing.
It's like that in Georgia. Right? It's like that. Yeah. I completely understand.
So that makes sense. But in Texas, you don't have to do that. You can literally post online gun for sale on Craigslist, and Joe Blow can show up to your house, give you $100 and leave with a weapon. That's dangerous. So what Biden wants to do is make what you do and what I have to do a federal mandate, so that no states can slide in under this gun show loophole, so that we know who's buying the guns. We can do the background checks. They don't do those types of background checks at gun shows.
I'm fine.
Right? Aren't you in favor of that?
Yeah, I'm for.
Right. Well, Trump is not in favor of that. Biden is in favor of that.
Okay, cool. But my problem with Biden is, you said that he wants to restrict us from being able to buy certain guns. What certain guns is he trying to restrict us from having?
So that, by the way, is also in the Bernie Biden compromise. Bernie was actually trying to pull Biden, this sounds weird, but further right or centrist on that. Bernie does not want Biden to go after the manufacturers. That's a big one. I know. And
that'll destroy the gun industry altogether. Because when you can sue the gun manufacturers for me buying one of their guns and I go kill somebody, they'll be so tied up in legal paperwork and legal fees and stuff, they will go bankrupt. It will happen so quick. Well,
the reason it's important, and I'm gonna defend the side I disagree with for a minute, okay? The reason that they're so impassioned, and the reason why Biden is pushing for that, is because the gun manufacturers are the lobbyists who participate in those scare tactics and pay Republicans millions and millions of dollars to prevent that gun legislation from happening. So they're funding that type of shit, right? And Biden's whole concept is, if we make it so that the people can sue the manufacturer, maybe the manufacturers will get on board with some common sense gun legislation and say, you know what, before you buy this, you need to be certified so you don't make mistakes and get me sued.
That's the lobbyist problem. I think that's a
It
lobbyist
is.
problem.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And if we got money out of politics, which by the way, Biden also wants to do, he wants
won't
to
do
end
it.
Citizens United. Well, as part of the Biden-Bernie compromise, he has said he would do that. So if you just believe he's going to ignore that, then that's a different situation.
You don't believe it either. You really don't believe it either. You couldn't possibly believe that.
No, I don't know. I think if Biden, I mean, this thing is extensive. This compromise that they have is extensive, Javier. And if he goes against that, he's going to lose a ton of progressive votes for his reelection. So I don't know, man. I think Bernie, the revolution is not over, but I think, yeah, for sure. I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about the requirements to own a gun, and my next thing, because we were talking about the loopholes, and I agree with you. The loopholes need to be shut down. I think anytime you purchase any gun, there needs to be a background check, and I disagree. If Trump doesn't want that, I disagree with him. But my problem comes in when you start saying that we want people to go through training, we want people to go through certification, all of these things. People who sometimes, most of the people who really need protection can't afford to do that. They can't. They won't be able to. Guns are expensive on their own. I just went and purchased a HK VP9. It cost me $700. That ain't including bullets, ain't include holster, none of that. I know that when I stayed in the projects, and those old ladies that live in the projects alone, they can't afford that. And you're basically telling them you can't own a gun because you can't afford it. So it's kind of hurting people in poverty.
No. I didn't say anything about costs.
But it will increase the cost.
I mean, listen. Have you ever heard someone make that argument to say that, I can't afford to go to the DMV and take a test. I can't afford to take a day off work. Just let me drive without a license. Too bad. If you can't afford it, if you can't afford the process, you can't afford a gun. To say that you could afford a $700 gun, but not a $50 license fee or a background check or something that's going to make it safer for the community for you to have that gun, then you don't get that gun. And I also am in favor of making free classes available. Come and get it for free. As a matter of fact, the gun stores should offer free classes. How about this? How about free classes, free registration, free licensing, and free renewal if you buy your gun here?
Well,
them pay. Let the gun manufacturers who are making billion-dollar profits pay for the licenses of the people. That'll. I just came up with that on top of my head.
I get that, but now you crossing in the territory of the free market and how you enforce it, and I mean that's a whole nother mess.
I'm not saying to enforce that part. I'm saying there's government testing and government licensing available, and then allow, not force, allow the gun stores, the gun shops, to offer those things for free and cover the cost for the people if they buy their gun there. I'm not going to enforce them to do that.
But why would they do it for free?
To get the gun purchase.
But okay, so is it mandatory to have so you want the government to make a federal mandate that you have certain requirements to buy a gun?
Right.
Okay, so, and you're saying that somebody who lives in the projects, who works 2 jobs and struggling to make ends meet, you saying that they should have to go to a extensive class, learn how to shoot, get certified, even if it's free. You expect people to actually do that instead of just going to get an illegal gun to protect themselves.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be realistic. I think more people are going to get guns illegally if you do that. More people are going to say, I'm not doing that. I got a homeboy over here. He got some guns.
No, because if you're in the car and you get pulled over and you've got an illegal weapon, you know what happens. You know what happens. And you get, 5 years per bullet in some places?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, man. It's crazy. So taking those steps, and listen, if you're not responsible enough to schedule those 3 days to take those classes, if you're not responsible enough to fill out that document and get that background check, why in the hell would I think you're going to be responsible enough to lock that gun away from your 5-year-old daughter?
Well, that's
you have to be a responsible human being.
That's the thing. It takes look, anybody who shoots guns, it takes a whole lot of training to become accurate with your gun, to become ready in case of you have to use that gun, to understand the laws in your state, in your county, or whatever the case may be, on what happens if you do shoot somebody in self-defense. It's a much more extensive process than just a few days. It's time consuming. It's very time consuming to be a responsible gun owner. And I want responsible gun owners. I think if you're mentally challenged, or you have some kind of, suffering from some kind of mental illness, you shouldn't be able to purchase a gun. If you're a criminal and you beat your wife or something, you shouldn't be able to purchase a gun. If you go buy a gun, you should have a background check. We agree on these things.
And so does Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, I disagree with Joe Biden is when we start talking about restriction on certain guns, like you said, going after the gun manufacturers. Like, for example, I don't know which guns he's trying to restrict, but I'm assuming stuff like the AR-15 from rhetoric that I've heard. And when mass shootings happen of that sort, people always tend to say, we need to ban assault rifles and we need to go after these assault weapons. But majority of the mass shootings, majority of the crimes committed in this country are by handguns. And AR-15s are semi-automatics, just like handguns, and they're not even used at the same degree of a handgun. So when people argue that once you start restricting certain guns, like AR-15s, why wouldn't you restrict handguns? Because they are used majority of the times in a crime.
So you do know that assault rifles were banned in 1994 and successfully passed our House and Senate.
And it wasn't effective.
Well, it wasn't enforced.
I get why people didn't enforce it. I mean, AR-15s are one of the most reliable guns you can buy and use in a lot of multiple different situations. And it's not being used majority of the time to kill people. And I don't know why it's in a...
What is it used for? Okay. I'm on Biden's website right now. You want me to read this to you?
Yeah.
It's three paragraphs. I think I can get through it quickly.
Okay.
Ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Here's the description below that. Federal law prevents hunters from hunting migratory game birds with more than 3 shells in their shotgun. That means our federal law does more to protect ducks than children. It's wrong. Joe Biden will enact legislation to once again ban assault weapons. This time, the bans will be designed based on lessons learned from the 1994 bans. For example, the ban on assault weapons will be designed to prevent manufacturers from circumventing the law by making minor changes that don't limit the weapon's lethality, while working to pass the legislation. So this is where the manufacturers get a little shady and will say, oh, well, the way that law is worded, we can't sell that. So let's just put this on the other side. There's a little this little button on the other side, and then it technically gets away with that, and they make little things to avoid that executive.
Just like the drug companies do with their patents. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that needs to be addressed as well. But since we're on guns, this is why Joe Biden is like, we need to hold them accountable when they do little shady shit like that, and when they make these little loopholes, and when they fund U.S. Congress members to stop them from being sued, they need to be held accountable at some point. That was his point there, and I kind of get that. Second, regulate possession of existing assault weapons under National Firearms Act. What? Joe Biden's not going to come take your AR-15? Here's what he says. Currently, the National Firearms Act requires individuals possessing machine guns, silencers, and short-barreled rifles to undergo a background check and register those weapons with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF. Due to these requirements, such weapons are rarely used in crimes. As president, Biden will pursue legislation to regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act. So if you have it, he's not going to take it from you. He's going to have you register it and with ATF.
Can we look at this? He said, due to the certain requirements set up for certain types of guns, they're rarely used in crimes, right? But an AR-15 doesn't fall under that category, and it's already not used in crimes that much.
What do you?
So it's kind of contradicting itself. Because I can see if the AR-15 was the most favored gun being used in crimes, then I can understand that.
Remember that it's not just AR-15s. This is about silencers. This is about high-capacity magazines. It's about something that somebody's going to take into a school and try to shoot 80 kids with. That's the point of this. The next thing he says is the buyback assault weapons program. Buyback assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in our communities. Biden will institute a program to buy back weapons of war on our streets. This will give individuals, that's not funny, Javier. This will give individuals, yeah, well, the AR-15 is just a dumbed-down M16.
The AR-15 was created for civilian use. They started using it in the military, and it's semi-automatic.
But the M16 doesn't have the.
It's not a semi-automatic.
Right. It's a
but the AR-15 is a semi-automatic. It's just like a pistol. It's just the way it looks that scares people.
It's not just that's not true. The round, first of all, is 3 times, maybe 4 times as big as a 9mm round. Probably 3 times as big as a 9mm round. Also, you can attach much higher capacity magazines to an AR than you can a pistol. So what I've got, I could get maybe 15, 17 into most handguns, maybe a 21 round clip in most handguns, and then or a magazine, and then I'm gonna have to reload. As to where an AR, you can get what, 100? You can get those what do they call them? Those canisters?
Yeah, you can. That's why Trump went and banned the bump stops. But
yeah,
for example, anybody who's trained and wants to kill a lot of people, you would prefer a handgun over AR-15. I mean, especially people like that, they come prepared. They come with multiple clips or whatever. You limiting the capacity.
What do you mean? Somebody who's trained would prefer a handgun. What do you mean?
Well, handguns are more versatile.
Handguns are notoriously difficult to aim with, even for people who are trained. It's really hard to hit your target. If you want to kill someone, specifically to kill someone, an AR-15 is way more precise than a handgun. What are you getting at?
Depending on your targets. Now, if you are shooting in a crowd, then the AR-15 will work. But if you go into a school and you're going from classroom to classroom trying to kill people, handguns are much more effective if you know what you're doing, because they're smaller, they're more versatile. You can maneuver yourself much easier with a handgun than you can with an AR-15.
Absolutely not. Now we sound like serial killers making a plan, debating on how we're going to kill kids in the school. So this is a little awkward, but no, I think you're completely wrong. First of all, you're going to have to drop that magazine and reload multiple times with a handgun. Secondly, the AR-15 is going to do more damage. That AR round is going to do more damage when it hits a person. Also, you can just spray, because 3 bullets are going to come out each time you pull that trigger on an AR. So no, man, I can't buy that at all.
Tell me why most people use handguns when doing things of that sort or committing crimes. Why are most people using handguns?
They're cheaper. They're easier to conceal, and they're traded on the black market more often.
AR-15s are, from my experience with AR-15s, I'll say that they are very efficient. They are very good at, especially if you want to go hunting something or if you want to target practice or whatever the case may be. But handguns are, I'm just not seeing the problem with AR-15s when they're not being used.
Well, they are though. They are. Let me finish what I was reading here. And I love this last piece, and I think you'll appreciate it, because Trump is in favor of not having to register any weapon. You and I agree that every firearm should be registered to that individual, right?
Were you talking about a federal registry? Like no, I don't agree with that. I don't believe in a federal registry. I think you can have a background check, but a federal registry that's some Hitler type stuff. That's some, like, we know where every gun is in the entire United States of America. Why do we need a federal registry? I live in my state. My state knows what guns I buy. They know, who purchased what.
Then the federal government can get access to that. It's a state registry. If the FBI wanted to know what the hell you had, they know who to call in Georgia.
Then what's the problem? Then why is there a need for a registry? You kind of having it both ways. If they can get it, why are they asking for a registry?
Well, first of all, trusting the states to keep up with the information, I think, could be part of it. The main thing, though, is, and why I'm wondering why you're even asking that question, is it just consolidates it. It makes it so that
it puts the federal government more in your life. The federal government is expanding.
You know what? I just realized what this is about. You think you're gonna stop tyranny with your AR-15 and your handgun?
No, I never said that.
It's not some Hitler type stuff. If the government wants your shit, they're going to take it. We're beyond that point.
They could try, and I might die trying to keep it. And many people feel that way.
You definitely. Let me finish this, and then I want to read a piece to you from my article about that specifically.
Okay.
You make a good point. If the states already have the registry, the point is most states don't have registries.
I think the federal government is trying to increase its power over the states by doing a federal registry because
of course, because the states aren't doing their jobs keeping track of these weapons and the dangerous people that have them.
And you think the federal government is going to do it better?
Okay. Yes. To answer your question, if it's a federal mandate, then the states are at. It doesn't matter what your state wants to do.
That's
Texas
horrible.
Can be Wild West. Texas can be as Wild West as they want to. But if you have to register your weapons nationally, then it doesn't matter. So when you travel with your family, don't you want to know you're just as safe in Massachusetts and Vermont as you are in Arizona?
Yes, right? That's why I study the laws before I go there.
Right, me too. I know. But my point is just not you carrying your gun, just safety overall is what I'm talking about. Let me finish this. The last piece of this is he says, this will give individuals who currently possess assault weapons or high-capacity magazines two options. Sell the weapons back to the government. They will buy them back. Or keep them and register them under the National Firearms Act.
You said keep them, and then you said and then the rest was kind of broke up.
Okay, so basically, if you have that stuff, you can either sell them back to the government right now and say, I never registered this and I don't want it, and you can have it, but give me money for it. Or you can keep them and register them under the National Firearms Act. And then the last piece is he's going to reduce the stockpiling of weapons. So he supports legislation to restrict the number of firearms an individual can purchase per month to one. That means in a calendar year under Biden, you can buy 12 guns a year, and you can even buy 12. If you've already got assault weapons, you can register those, keep your assault weapons, and buy 12 more guns every year. This idea that Biden is anti-gun is just crazy. He's not infringing upon the Second Amendment.
Well, I think most people say we've seen things like this in other countries, and we've seen how they start one place, and next thing you know, they're cracking down more and more. It has happened. I'm not trying to use a slippery slope fallacy, but it has happened. Look, in Canada, they just came out straight and said, we banning all these guns. Get over it. It's nothing you can do.
Yep. And their gun deaths are completely bottomed out.
That's fine. I know some people wish they had a gun that day where that guy went around killing all those people. I'm pretty sure somebody wish they had a gun to stop him.
But, all right, I'm gonna read you this thing. This sums up my point.
I want to point out something real quick before you read it.
Precisely.
The federal government, I think the federal government is trying to make states obsolete, honestly. The more they keep overreaching their power, they're going to make the states obsolete. And we have states for a reason. It's a union. The states are not, the federal government is not all be all. And the more and more the federal government keeps imposing on the states, they're going to make the states obsolete. And that's not the way America is supposed to be set up, and it's not the way it's supposed to be ran. So I really think it's a power move on the states more than anything.
No, I think that that's one thing that wouldn't piss me off completely, to be honest with you. I don't mind there being states, of course, but expecting a family who, like you said, lives in a projects, let's say Maryland, for example. Let's talk about the projects in Baltimore. If they had some racist governor, right, start implementing all these weird laws for the projects, all these weird laws that proportionally affect minority communities negatively, shouldn't there be some saving grace in our federal government? Because those people in those projects, when they do work, their taxes are going to the federal government. They are paying citizens for the United States of America. Shouldn't they have protections under the 1964 Civil Rights Act? Well, okay. Well, then telling that racist governor over that state, you can't do this to these people, is a good thing. So the states' rights argument is, you don't like it, you can just move.
It's not
And
a
remember,
full.
states' rights was this, as Lee Atwater talked about, it was code for racism. It was let the governor decide how to treat blacks. That's what it really meant. So states' rights, government. I'm not going to take a position on this from a politician perspective. States' rights, if they want to allow busing, if they want to allow integration,
That's not
if they
true.
want to integrate schools.
When you look at the founding of the country and the unions and the colonies, it's just not true that the states' rights came all about racism. It was about.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that's where it came from. I said that has become the code word of Republicans to avoid getting involved with racist discussions. They would rather just say states' rights issues. Lee Atwater said it in real life. Tell me you've heard that clip. Have you never heard the clip from
you talking about when he said instead of saying N-word, N-word, N-word? Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
Okay, he was saying to use the word states' rights as code for let the states be racist so the government doesn't have to take a position on it. So if they're doing something terrible, you're like, hey, we're not going to overreach and that's what that was about. Here's what I wrote in that piece. I said, I could hand you 50 M16s, make you 1,000 illegal bombs, steal you a couple of tanks and smuggle in some bazookas, and even let you fully train 500 of your closest friends. If the government wants your shit, they're still going to take it. You still wouldn't be a match for a single battalion of the United States Marine Corps, not to mention the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the National Guard, the Secret Service, the FBI, the CIA, the Navy SEALs, and all the groups we don't even fucking know about. So stop acting like your little AR-15 is going to stop tyranny. A collection of studies from 2012 to 2013 found that having a gun in your home significantly increases your risk of death and that of your spouse and children. If you have a gun, regardless of how it's stored, everybody in your home is more likely than your non-gun owning neighbors and their families to die in a gun-related accident, suicide, or homicide.
That's a given. I mean, of course you can't get shot if there's not a gun around. I get that. And let's go back to what you said about you made a statement that the government it's nothing you can do, even if you train 500 people and all of this. Nobody's saying that we want to take on the government. Nobody wants to kill fellow Americans. Nobody wants that. The whole argument is we, the people, are in charge. The government's not in charge. And as soon as the government, let's say Donald Trump came out tomorrow and decided, hell, I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm not leaving office. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. We, the people, which is also the military, is going to say, hell no, you got to get the hell out. And if you don't, we will do it by force. So it's not necessarily saying we're going to beat the military. Nobody ever said that. It's just saying that as long as we have a form of defense, it keeps the people in the political sphere, in the government.
It doesn't, though. That's an illusion. And that's my entire point. It's an illusion. This idea that you're safe, it's a false sense of security.
Tell that to the Jews. The Jews are more. I would have rather died fighting the Nazis than being hauled off to a concentration camp. You don't just lay down and let them do what they want to do if they came for you.
I agree.
That's my only point. You don't lay down. That's my only point. If you're gonna lose, I'm gonna lose on my feet. I'm not gonna be hauled off.
But you're not being sensible about how this would actually take place. Yes, if the government called you and said, hey, we're going to start a war and we were going to come take you and treat you like shit and haul you off in trains to make you work in concentration camps, or we can have a shootout. We'll be there at 5:30. Totally your decision. It doesn't work that way. You get your front door smashed in when you have no idea what's happening. Ain't got time to get to your guns. And if you do, they're going to be yelling, police, police, police. And you're thinking, oh, shit, Breonna Taylor, right? You get thrown in jail, and then they come confiscate all your shit during the investigation. And then later down the line, they find out, well, he wasn't really involved, or he was. At this point, you've been locked up for 3 months. What did your guns do for you?
So let me ask you this.
How did your AR-15 stop that tyranny? It's not when you actually, dude, this zombie apocalypse idea, or the idea
Nobody's
of
saying that. Nobody's
breaking
saying
it
that. That's a
up.
straw man.
No.
I-
A lot of people are saying that. Let me just tell
okay,
you,
there are some people who say that.
growing up in Texas, zombie apocalypse usually was key word for if a bunch of black folks in the hood got out of line and thought they were going to come to our neighborhood. That shit carries a lot of racism with it. Like, I'm going to keep my AR-15 with me in case the others come here. That's what the zombie apocalypse really meant, right? But the shit doesn't happen. You go Google stuff. Go Google, like, man successfully defends himself with a firearm. I did that the other day. The first thing that popped up was 3 criminals shooting at a car that were driving by with handguns. You can find videos of people defending themselves, but they are few and far between. There's like one compilation of like 9 videos over 12 years. It doesn't happen very often at all. But what you're doing,
the data don't back that up.
Here, yes, it does, man. You can say the term a million all you want. It's 0.3% of our population
out of a certain. But you talking about the whole population. I'm talking about the amount of people who actually own guns.
I'm trying to say, well, yeah, well, so
the people who don't own guns, you don't know who needed a gun but didn't have one, so you can't count them.
Flag argument from ignorance fallacy. You're all over it, man. All over the place.
No, it's a fact. You cannot count people who needed a gun who didn't have one to use it.
You know, you can't count how much more in danger you and your family is right now because you have those guns in your house. You're not safer. You think you're safer. Statistically, if you want to talk about statistics, you are statistically far more in danger because you brought those weapons into your house with your family. You are far more at risk of dying from those weapons.
Yes, and if I put a pool in my backyard, I'm far more at risk of drowning in a pool. It doesn't change the fact that I shouldn't have a pool. All it's saying is, of course, if you got a gun, you're way more likely to shoot yourself. How many people? What's the number one cause for gun violence in America? How many people die from guns? What's the cause?
What? Why? What about this? Is about Joe Biden and his policies. Ultimately, my goal is to get you to agree to vote for Joe Biden, right? What about Joe Biden's policy makes you want to vote for Trump? Because it sounds like when you start talking common sense with me, that you agree with about 90% of what Joe Biden wants to do.
We just went through Joe Biden's.
And you got a couple of things you disagree with, but Trump, I haven't heard you have a single agreement with Trump on anything having to do with guns, maybe except for the fact that you don't want a national registry, but you're willing to go to the state.
And he won't go after the gun manufacturers. That's the major one. That's crucial. If you go after the gun manufacturers, there is no more guns. So in reality, if you do go after the gun manufacturers, the gun industry is over.
Javier, that is such a straw man, and you know that. When you say go after, he's talking, and I disagree. You're making me defend a point I disagree with, but you just went so far to left field with a straw man. I feel like I have to stay in reality.
I've heard Joe Biden say it.
He is saying not go after. He's saying if someone dies as a result of something on the weapon, then they can be sued.
They already can be. No,
they can't. No, they can't.
No, he's saying
no, sir. No, they can't. The gun lobbyists got Congress filled up their pockets to pass a law. I don't remember the year. I can look it up. To pass a law that makes them completely clear from being sued, no matter what happens.
That's not true. I've seen this law. What it says is you cannot sue a gun manufacturer for somebody using their weapon in the commission of a crime. So if I go into school and shoot somebody, they can't sue the gun manufacturer. But you can sue the gun manufacturer if there's a flaw in their weapon that causes you to blow your hand off, or something is faulty with the gun that causes you to do something. Then you can sue them.
I didn't say faulty. I'm talking about how the gun manufacturers change a slight design to sneak under the law, and then they lobby Congress to keep that law the same so that their guns won't be subject to that law. And then that law keeps, and then that gun, because they used a little loophole and changed a little trigger mechanism on it for whatever reason, and then they get away with it, and then that person dies as a result. Joe Biden is saying that company could be sued. I'm not completely on board with that, but I understand where he's coming from, that the manufacturer is manipulating the system, and then supporting financially a law that keeps them clear from being sued. That's fucked up. And
I
allowing
agree.
an individual, allowing your wife to sue the gun manufacturer does not mean no more guns. That is a massive straw man, and
No. We're talking about two different things. Okay, when you said that, as far as Joe Biden saying tweaking certain things to kind of like get over the gun laws, I'm there with you. What I am talking about is when Joe Biden says that he's going to allow people to sue the gun manufacturer because of people using their weapons to commit crimes. I've heard Joe Biden say this, that he's going to let people sue gun manufacturers for their weapons being used in like the Sandy Hook massacre. I've heard him say this on this issue. That's what I'm opposed against. I'm not opposed what you're talking about the tweaking. I'm totally against that.
Look up. It's called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. That's what most of this rides on. If that's Joe Biden's position, which I've heard people tell me that was his position, and in the debate with Bernie, he sounded like he was leaning that direction, I disagree with that piece. But that's not enough for me over all the shit that Donald Trump has been doing over the last 3 years. This one little disagreement, which, by the way, he would have to get passed through the House and the Senate. Keep that in mind. We're arguing over policy shit here, man. These types of conversations, Javier, should be happening at the table in front of Joe Biden among people who he considers close allies and advisors, right? But Donald Trump is a fucking maniac that needs to get the hell out of the way so the adults can get back to the table and have these types of conversations.
Yeah, but people are saying that Joe Biden is, he's just sensible and, we're just trying to get back to normal. Joe Biden can make a lot of policies that can hurt a lot of people very soon or could be lasting effects. We can't ignore that fact of it. Also, Kamala Harris, who he picked as his vice president, literally got on stage at a debate and said that she would sign an executive order to limit the Second Amendment on certain guns. She said that she would ban certain guns outright with an executive order. With Joe Biden trying to tell her that's illegal, you can't do that. And she said, yes, we can.
No, it's already the case, Javier. You can't go buy an M16.
I'll make that argument every day of the week. Like I tell people on guns all the time, we've already given up certain things. The question is, what are we giving up and how important is it what we're giving up? Just because we gave up
what you just said, that it was a shocking thing. Kamala Harris went on stage and said what she said is already the case. You cannot go own a fucking bazooka. You can't get a nuclear launch pad in your backyard.
But
you can't drive an army tank. You can't drive an army tank down the street.
Yes, but now you're getting into the part of the slippery slope. Not through executive order, for one. You cannot sign an executive order and just outright ban certain guns.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not necessary, not illegal necessary. Maybe it's illegal. Who knows? There's no point in it. It's already the case. The government already limits what weapons Javier can own.
Yes, and they will continue to keep doing it. Once it's now it's AR-15, then it's going to be my HK-VP9, then it's going to be my Ruger. It's always going to be something, because as long as there's guns in America, there are going to be a certain percentage of people who use guns in the wrong way, and people are going to die. But most murders or most people that die from handguns or guns in general come from suicide. That's what they don't tell you. Majority.
I just read that. I just read that it was suicide, homicide, or accidental death. Those are the three biggest causes of gun deaths in the country. And you know why, man? You know why, though?
Go ahead.
You know why? Because, and back to your hammer comment that I just ignored for the moment because it was so absurd.
You the one who said anything you could kill somebody with. I was just
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I never said anything you can kill somebody with. What I'm saying is,
rewind the tape, fellas. Rewind the tape.
There's not a cool down period, right? If you were depressed and you lose your job and your wife leaves you and you're sitting on the edge of your bed hating yourself, go ahead and pick up a hammer and bust yourself in the face a few times. You'll stop. You'll stop before you die, right? Frying pan.
I'll go to the medicine cabinet before I do any of that.
That's what I'm saying. But that actually burns your insides. that will, like, you'll feel like you're on fire inside for about 45 minutes before you die. So people just grab a gun because it's easy, it's accessible, it's right there, it's quick, it's painless, and it just ends everything right then. So people go to the easy way out. But if you don't have a gun around, you have time to cool down. You have time to think things through. You get on the phone with your best friend. They talk you out of it. You go to a strip club. I hope your wife can't hear me right now. You move on, right? You know what I mean? You find, okay, thank you. You find a way to move on, and your friend gets in your ear and says, man, don't, your life can be more than this. You don't have that time sometimes if the gun is sitting right there and it's just so easy and accessible. Same way with a fight. You and your wife get into an argument. She finds out you were cheating on her. She sees the gun. She's in a fit of rage. She picks it up, pop, pop, pop. And then she's just going to say, he was abusing me. He was hitting me. Right? But if the gun's not there, it requires a cool down period. That's the reason why you're more susceptible to gun death by having those in your house. It's not just accidents. It's enraged moments of emotion without a cool down period.
So let me ask you this. So you would argue based on, oh, go ahead. I hope you're all right. I hope you ain't got that COVID. They say that shit's a killer.
I thought your boy said it was a hoax. It was going to be gone in 10 days, but
he been killing me on that shit. Look, I'm not. Look,
who do you trust? Who do you trust for the next COVID?
The guy who says trust the science. Is that what you want me to say?
Yeah, that's what I want you to say.
But we talk about people who. I'm not gonna go there because we're gonna get into a long drawn conversation about men and women and transgenders. But okay, but when I say this is I lost my train of thought. We was talking about what was the last thing you said about the guns?
You were telling me why you were going to vote for Biden in 2020, I think.
Oh, by your logic, then we should have no guns. That's what you're saying. No guns. Get rid of all the guns.
No. What? Why would you say that?
Because you said that having a gun around, it doesn't allow for that cool-off period. So what if somebody like me, responsible gun owner, who wants to shoot guns for, sport, or I just want to keep it around for self-defense. I keep it locked up. I follow all the rules and the laws, and I come home in a fit of rage, or I find my wife cheating on me or something, and I pull a gun, bam, bam, bam. By that logic, you should just get rid of all the guns because that could never happen.
Well, so you're right. By that logic, that would be the utopia if guns never existed, right?
I would argue for that every day of the week.
Right, but we live in a real world where they already do exist. So what I'm trying to do and what Joe Biden's trying to do, and we may disagree on some pieces of how that puzzle should fit together, but what we're trying to do as a whole on the left is make those guns safer with fingerprint locks, with laws on storing them, on a national registry.
I think Joe Biden should sit down.
Limiting how many they can buy, and mandatory training. Because when you institute those things, the safety locks, the mandatory training, what you're doing is you're walking up to that Second Amendment line and you're saying, what causes the deaths? Accidental gunfire, how many? What if we mandatory training, and will that reduce it? Oh yeah, we show that people who have licenses are far less likely to have accidents. Okay, so let's do that. What about these other 900 deaths? How did they happen? Oh, there was no safety on the gun. It was a Glock 40 and it didn't come with a safety. Oh, so let's require all guns to have a safety mechanism on them. All right, cool. That's going to reduce some. Joe Biden and I.
He's not talking about those things. He's not talking about those things. He's not talking about training.
Yes, he is. Not training necessarily. That was my thing. But he did talk about the safety mechanisms, the fingerprint scanners. He does talk about these things. I feel like for somebody who is on the fence, I think the next phase, Javier, that what I would like to see you step into is actually watching long videos of Biden talk about these issues, reading his full compromise, going to his website. There's a whole section on his website specifically dedicated to gun violence and what he would do to stop it.
I'll do that. I think I could do my due diligence because I do care about who the president is, and I think my vote matters. And I will take the time to read extensively through Joe Biden's whole platform And the Bernie Sanders and the Joe Biden promise that you brought up, I'm open. I care about having these conversations. I'm not just saying MAGA 2020 forever. I'm not gonna do that. So, I'm gonna do that for you because I want to come on your show and we can hash these things out. I feel like we're getting somewhere.
Right.
I don't want to go too long for my camera cut off. But let me ask you this, and we can end on this note because you gave me some things to look at. I think that Joe Biden is. I really don't trust. I really don't even think Joe Biden is the person that's going to be president for long. I really don't even know how real I can trust a Biden presidency. But there are a lot of things Donald Trump does that pisses me off and that I don't like. And like I said on the first video, you prove those three things to me, then I'll change my mind. Hell, I was gonna vote for Joe Jurgensen. So, but that's where we are. But with this gun issue, I think we could get into a whole lot more. And it's always fun talking to you. I mean, I'm pretty sure we could sit here and just go on and on. But anything you want to leave me with before we wrap this up?
Yeah, man. There are going to be disagreements. You're going to read things in Biden's compromise and in his platform that you didn't know you disagreed with him about, and you're going to find more reasons to disagree with Joe Biden. I'm asking you to make value-based decisions on those disagreements. Also ask yourself, how likely is he to get the extreme of that passed? Because a lot of times these guys go in with this great idea and he's already had to compromise with Bernie, who is somehow pro-gun and a democratic socialist. But he's already had to compromise there. When he takes it to the House, and the House, there's going to be people in Congress that are going to disagree with how the bill is written. It's going to be compromised and rewritten and then spit back out. And then it's got to go through the Senate, and they're going to rewrite stuff. And there's going to be Republicans in Senate that won't support it. And then it's going to go to Biden. Biden may have to accept things with it he doesn't like, so he may send it back. Don't think that anything you read in there is an automatic right you're giving up, right? It's going to be a process of negotiating back and forth. And he's already so damn close that a couple of things, like I think this whole manufacturing, suing the manufacturers, I don't think that'll ever make it through. I don't think it will. I think it's a quicker fix.
You want everybody to vote blue down the line. If what you want happens, Joe Biden has free range. So, but
he does not have free reign. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Because there are Democrats that are right of Biden on these issues that will keep him sane and regulated. That's my point here, Javier. And so what I'm asking you to do, what I'm leaving you with, is look at the things you agree with, look at the things you disagree with, and then turn your head to the right and go, where is Trump's platform? Where does he stand on these issues? I'll tell you where he stands. Wherever he thinks is going to get him elected. He has no stance. There is no Republican platform for 2020. He literally had a campaign rally at the White House on the lawn. You don't mix government with your personal campaign. That's a violation of the Hatch Act. And he did it anyway. There were government employees running around putting up chairs as his assistants that should not have been working for his campaign rally. This man breaks law after law after law, has currently 13 sexual assault allegations, has obviously been impeached for trying to get the president of Ukraine to help him out with an election. The dude is shady. He doesn't trust scientists. He's argued with a climate scientist just the other day on stage, said science doesn't know about climate change. He argued about that. He talked over two black pastors on
the laundry
list.
You're giving me the laundry list.
Telling you, I'm giving you the laundry list, Javier, because you're going to look at this thing and you're going to dive off into this angle and be like, Biden wants to do this thing and I don't like this one thing. I'm telling you, value-based decision. Look at that and compare it to not just the shit that Donald Trump does that pisses you off. I'm talking about the things he does that leave us an embarrassment to the rest of the world. Makes us look like we have no leadership, right? Makes it look like we're not the ones to be trusted. We're no longer considered one of the powers. We're not looked up. We went from being the world's bigger brother to the crazy drunk uncle that's about to get everybody arrested. They look at us like we're crazy now.
So let me ask you this: since you said that,
Donald Trump. The last piece is Donald Trump is not going to put smart people around him to help make decisions. He's putting people around him who are getting indicted and thrown in prison for lying. Biden will, at the very least, surround himself with scientists, medical experts, and people smarter than he is, and he will listen to them and trust them instead of fighting them every step of the way, even if you disagree with him on a few issues here and there. It's just not worth the gamble to let this maniac bring his band of monkeys in and screw shit up another 4 years.
I hear you, David. I swear I hear everything you're saying. And I know my subscribers are gonna be like, you let him just go off on Trump, all this and all that, and you just, hey, all right, have a good show. All right, but I'll say this. You said don't look at just the negatives about it. Look at the net positives, and then look at the overall picture and have to compare. Are those things that I disagree really worth the overarching, what's at stake? So let me ask you, are you doing the same thing with Trump? Or is there
Absolutely.
something that you think that Trump has done that you agree with? Anything, one thing.
I took an I sided with test, and to give you an idea, I took an I sided with test, and I was 43% with Donald Trump and 58% with Joe Biden. So I think Bernie got into the 80s for me. But if that shows you how low Biden was on my list originally, I would take the test again right now. We should do that together.
Yeah.
And I think we did that with you. Who was your person? Was it Amy Klobuchar or something?
Yeah, it was Amy Klobuchar. I thought the test was the questions were kind of, we were trying to expand. You know how deep thinkers are. We kind of like, well, do we mean? But it was Amy Klobuchar. It was Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah. So I think Trump negotiating the stuff with China, I think, was good. There's been basically a couple of things he's done financially. The Iran deal, some people say it made it more dangerous, but I think we're on the cusp of getting something better, I hope. But there's only been a couple. Like the things that he's done that I think are decent are so minor to him, locking kids in cages and not letting them have toothbrushes, and lying about the hurricane, drawing the little black Sharpie line for the hurricane. He's just an absolute embarrassment, dude. He's just an embarrassment. And so the little things he's done that I thought were decent could have been done by somebody with a moral compass.
But we're gonna leave it there. I think that was a great conversation. You make a lot of points that I do agree with. I definitely agree with, and I want to dive deeper into this gun issue, but please tell everybody. Oh, go ahead.
Ask yourself too, why do you think so many Republicans are joining with Biden? And I mean classic Republicans like John Kasich. Those dudes are the reasonable conservatives that agree with the points you're making and agree with Biden. So look at people like John Kasich and wonder, why is he making an endorsement for Joe Biden? Why would someone like that cross that aisle and do that? That's your guy. And I think that's why Biden needs to be your vote. I think it makes sense because you're still reasonable, right? With some conservative values, which is fine. I think it takes both of us to run this country. Trump is not Democrat or Republican. Trump is not an evangelical or an atheist. He is all about himself. He's a narcissist, and he will throw us under the bus if he has to. And we just don't want somebody like that in charge of this country, man. We've seen enough.
This is how I was feeling when I was on the edge of like I'm not voting for Trump. I would recommend, if you do get a chance, go check out my video about separating conservatism from Trumpism and the Republican Party. Made a video. Okay. It's a short video. So, but
I watched two videos right before I came on here that I want to send you to. It shows one of them shows a really unique thing about how we keep saying both sides are fighting, both sides are digging in. But there's this chart that shows like moderates.
I think I've seen it.
Liberals and then the Republicans. And it shows Republicans are just like skewing away from everything that's normal. And they're so much further away that when they launch an attack and then we launch an attack back, the news cycle says both sides are fighting. But One side is clearly going more extreme. And this video was from 2018. So it doesn't even account for the last 2 years, Trump's impeachment and all the crazy shit. The Republicans
conservatives
are away from conservatism. It's crazy.
I really do believe Trump was supposed to be a referendum on the conservative party. I think most conservatives felt like the Republican Party didn't represent them. And Trump was saying all of these things like, oh, everybody's crooked. The whole system is this, that, and the third. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to drain the swamp. And I think that's what was the message that conservatives was buying. He was like, he's going to fix the conservative party. He's going to get in here and get rid of all these corrupt politicians and this crony capitalism. And we almost 4 years into this thing, and I understand what's going on. I see the conservatives leaving. I see what's happening. And like I said,
see, it's funny how he was saying drain the swamp, yet he's had 11 of his administration officials indicted and 3 arrested or 5 arrested. It's so he brought the swamp with him. Right? The swamp. He wasn't draining it unless he means, I'll bring them with me and get them all indicted.
All right, David C. Smalley, that was a great conversation. Please tell them again where they can find you.
DavidCSmalley.com, David C. Smalley on all social media.
There it is, folks. Say it twice. Go subscribe. Go follow him twice. All right, we out. Peace.